Okay, so in this week's guitar lesson, we're going to learn how to play a standalone composition, an old song from the early 1920s called Wabash Blues. And I don't typically do cover songs. I usually write my own material, and I just stay away from cover songs for copyright reasons. That's the biggest reason. But I felt very led to do this song this week. My father-in-law, his name is Kent, he's in very poor health and his days are very limited. And he's on his deathbed, and so I'm kind of going over in the evenings and spending time with him and playing guitar. That's always been our thing. Like, he's really into music, and I am too. And even though we come from completely different generations, I always learn something when I hang out with him. He's always suggesting songs, and I don't know what they are. I have to look them up. So anyway, the other night he says he asked me if I knew Wabash Blues, and I didn't know that. I didn't know the title of it. So I wrote it down, went home, looked it up, and realized I do know the song. I just didn't know the title of it. So I worked up a little arrangement of it so that I could play it for him. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just check and see, is this song even in the public domain? And sure enough, it is. So this ended up being kind of the perfect lesson for this week, because I'm able to create the composition that I could play for him, but then I can give it to all of you as well, so that everybody can learn how to play this. And then there's more to it than just learning how to memorize the notes. There's the chance for you to improvise. The song has a structure, but there's little pockets where you can improvise. I'll give examples of all that. And I'll also explain sort of how I came up with the composition of this based on the melody. I'll kind of talk through my thought process. So I've got the videos, or the lesson, split into two parts. In this video, we're going to go through the first half. If you'd like to watch the second half, download the tablature and also access the on-screen tab viewer, which is interactive. You can loop it, you can slow it down, all of those things. You can get those extra things by going to activemelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP539. Okay, Wabash Blues. So I'm playing this song in the key of E, and I could have picked any key. The first thing I needed to do was sort of determine the key. Actually, no, let me back up. The first thing I needed to do was figure out the chord structure of the song. So I just went on YouTube and typed in Wabash Blues and started hearing all kinds of different versions of it. A lot of Dixieland, sort of New Orleans style versions of it, which makes sense. This has kind of got that vibe. It's got a very call and response style structure. So for example, you've got, that's sort of the melody line, that's the call, and then from that I can throw in a little improvised response. There's the call, and then there's the response. So it gives me a chance to play a standalone composition, but also to sit around by myself and improvise. So the first thing that I had to do was determine the chord structure of the song, and I realized right away that it starts on the 5 chord and it resolves to the 1 chord. So we go from the 5, that's our first chord, and so we're going to be playing this in the key of E. So our first chord is a B, or B7, and then we go to the E. Then we go back to the B7 and back to the E. And then it goes to the 4 chord, which is an A, and then we go back to the 1 chord. But then it goes to, we think of you going to your 5 chord, but going up a step. So like your 5 chord sharp. So in this case, it would be a C. Is a B sharp. There's no B sharp, so you can go up to a C, and then you go down to your 5 chord, and then back to the 1 chord. So that's the whole structure of the whole song. Really, just a 1-4-5 blues. It starts on the 5 chord. That's probably the easiest way to summarize it. I picked the key of E because we have our open strings. And so I could have done this in any key, but once I knew the chord structure, I knew it, okay, 5 chord to the 1 chord. The next thing I had to do was figure out which key I wanted to do it in. I tend to default to the key of E or the key of A if I'm playing a standalone composition. And the reason for that is when I get to like the part where it goes, you can see what I'm doing there. I'm hitting that open A string. It rings out, lets me take my hand off the fretboard, and then I can come down and play the chord. And then I can go, and then I can come down, hit my open E string. So I've got those open strings to ring out. That's why so many of your favorite blues songs are played in the key of E or A for that very reason. Sometimes in the key of D, because you've got that 4th string that rings out. That's the reason why I picked the key. All right, so now we know the chord structure, we know the key we're going to be using. Then let's work in the melody. So if it starts in the 5 chord, which is our B, we walk up to the B, that's what the melody does, and then it goes, which brings us back to the 1 chord. So that's the first thing, and when I first started it, that's what it sounded like. It was like, very boring, right? But I know I can improve on it from there. To me, this is like building a house. We're putting up we're starting to frame the walls a little bit. We haven't gotten into picking, paint colors or any of that yet. We're just sort of framing it out. Now from there, to make that melody a little more interesting, why don't we harmonize it? That's what harmonies are for. They just make it sound more full and more pretty. So I still have that, that single string line that's running across the 1st fret, but underneath it on the 3rd string, I've got this harmonized 6th. So what I'm doing then, to play that, I've got both fingers on the same fret there, the 4th fret, strings 1 and 3, and then I'm going to change the positioning of my fingers. So now I've got one finger, my index finger on the 5th fret, 1st string, my middle finger on the 6th fret, 3rd string. And we're going to keep that position and walk it all the way up. So when you put the 2 pieces together, you come up to here, and that gets us to where your B chord is. Let's listen to it, and then I'll talk about specifically what I played. Okay, so what I ended up playing there goes. All right, did you catch that? So when we get to the B chord, the B7, it goes like this. Now let me show you how to make the chord. Just think about your E chord shape. This is from the Cage system. Same as your E chord in 1st position, but we're barring now on the 7th fret. So if I play that, but I take my pinky away, I'm playing a B7. All right, I got that flat 7 in there. Okay, so once we walked it up, what I'm doing is I'm picking on the 3rd string, and I'm using my ring finger to pluck on that 1st string, and I'm hammering on with my middle finger to the 8th fret, 3rd string, like this. But when I do that, at the same time, watch this. So as my finger hammers on there, I'm using my pick to come down and hit the 6th string. So like this. So just practice that over and over again. And that's the only way I could make the timing, the cadence part kind of work out. Like that. And then I do a strum, just a downstroke of the chord. So it goes like this. And then I go into the 6 to the 9 chord. I always talk about this. I use it all the time. I'm just repurposing stuff that I've showed you in a million other videos. But the general idea is off of this E chord shape. Now I realize that's a B chord, right? But in that shape there, in that neighborhood, you can make a B6 chord by playing like this. I'll put that up on the screen. So that's a B6 chord. And if you slide that down 2 frets, that's a B9. So just file that away in your head, that where your bar is when you're making your E chord shape, you can also put your index finger on that 1st string there and play the 6th chord. And you can always move your 6th chord down for a 9 chord. So you can go. So how many blues have you heard like this? That kind of thing. Right? That's where that comes from, that 6 to the 9. It's perfect little jazzy blues thing. So, from the beginning. Okay, now then we go into the next little melody part and it goes. So what I was doing before I kind of worked out this chord shape was I was going like this. I was keeping everything on strings 1 and 3. I just thought that would be easiest in my head to file it away. But then I realized when I played this 9 chord, this B9, I've got the first 2 lines of the melody already in the chord. So I just keep that chord there and I play strings 4 and 2, and then I play strings 3 and 1. And then I come down and play both fingers on the 4th fret again, like where we started, and then down to my E chord. So it goes like this. And actually when I played my E chord, I started by just playing strings 1 and 3. And then I strum the chord. So it's like a... So when you put it together, you have... And then since we've got a little time to hang out there on that E chord, let's improvise something. Let's throw something in there. So what I played was a little improvise. It's really a major pentatonic scale pattern 2, which is here on the 2nd fret. So 1st string and 2nd string. But I do a half bend on that 1st string. And then I come down to the 2nd string and play 2 open and then open 6. So it's like this. And that allows me, now I've got that note ringing out, I can take my hand off the fretboard and reposition it. So let's go back. Here's the beginning again. Okay, so now we've got the melody line happen. So then the second time, I played this as a little fill lick. That's another little improvised thing. So we're hanging out on the B right now. Remember the first time I just went 6 to the 9 chord. That was my little improvised response. But this time I go like this. So I'm sliding with my pinky up to the 11th fret 1st string. And then I come back to the 7th fret and play string 1 and 2 on that 7th fret. And then strings 2 and 3 on the 9th fret, and then strings 2 and 3 on the 7th fret with a hammer onto the 8th fret 3rd string. And that's just getting me back into that B neighborhood. So all of this is a little improvised B thing. Okay, and then I went to get to the E. And so I did that instead of going like we did the first time. Since I'm already in position here with my ring finger on the 9th fret 4th string from playing this lick, then I can play this. I can put my pinky on the 9th fret 2nd string and play this little walk down to here. But let me explain what that is. I want you to be able to use this going forward. I was playing off of my 5 chord, right, the B. And then we're trying to get back to the 1 chord. And so what I did was I asked myself, where is my nearest E chord? Because that's the 1 chord, right? So I'm here in this neighborhood doing B stuff. Oh yeah, there's an E chord right here using the A shape. Oh, so I can just do this. And that's out of that A shape. It's just strings 4 and 2 out of that A shape. And what's nice about that, I can walk it all the way down till I come to my C shape. It's still an E chord, but hopefully you can see what's going on there. I'm just connecting the A shape to the C shape of my E chord, but I'm not playing the full chord. I'm just playing strings 2 and 4. Let's take it, let me back it up and play from here. See what happened there? So as soon as we played, my ring finger goes down on that 9th fret 4th string, and then I'm in position, and I'm using my ring finger, my pinky for that, to come all the way down to this position. And then I can go and take my hand off and play my E chord down the way that we all know how to play it in first position. And I just strum the chord, put my pinky down on that second fret, second string as a little embellishment, just to sort of fill the space. Okay, so that's the first part of this song. Now you've got those little pockets where you can improvise, and you got to take advantage of those. You can play the ones I'm doing, or you can go. There's all little kinds of little things you can do in those spots. The same thing for the B chord. So just kind of mess around with all the licks that you've been working on, your pentatonic scales, and connect them to those chord shapes and see what kind of little improvised things you can come up with. Okay, now let's listen to this next phrase. Okay, so now is where the song goes to the 4 chord, which is our A chord. And I came up here and went, because that's where the melody goes. It goes like, so the melody comes up this high, 12th fret first string, and I played that with my pinky, gave it some vibrato, and while I was playing it or letting it ring out, I can hit that open 5th string, which is my A note. And it sort of puts it all in context when you hear the bass note played against it. And then I can take my hand off, come down and play my A chord in first position. And I did that as a little embellishment. It's really going from the A to the D chord. But I keep the bar there, first 4 strings on the 2nd fret. And then I played this, where I've got my middle finger on the 3rd fret, 2nd string, ring finger on the 4th fret, 4th string. So after this, then I come back up here and played, and use that for the melody. So that's 14, 12 on the 1st string, and then we come to the 15th fret and do a quick slide down to the 14th fret. And then back to the 12th fret. That's all on the 1st string. That's just a little vocal quality to me, a little nuance there. That slide. And then we go 14, 12 on the 2nd string. And then while that rings out, we can hit the open E string again. And play my E chord down here, using that little pinky on the 2nd fret, 2nd string as an embellishment. So from the beginning of that we have okay, so now the song goes like this. And what I'm doing is I'm playing my C chord, which is a half step up from my B chord, which is the 5 chord, which gets us back to the 1 chord. So we start on that 7th fret first string, and then I come up and play just my C chord using the E shape. It's just a full bar chord, and play like this. Just walk down the notes of the chord. So I went. You can hear that, right? Just 1, 2, 3, 4 out of my C chord using the E shape. And then I gave it a little strum. So it goes like this. And then listen to this. So from my C chord here, I'm going to play 2nd string. Pinky goes down on the 10th fret 2nd string. So that first one is behind the bar there, which is on the 7th or the 8th fret. And then 6th fret first string, and then we come back to my B7 chord. So it goes like this. And then when I played that, I played the B7, it came up a half step to the C, and then back to the B. Just added that little thing. Now I added that myself to kind of fill the space. So we come up to the C, pinky goes down on the 10th fret first string, and then we come back into the B7. I'm going to end the part 1 video right there. That's a good sort of wrap up. That gets you through the whole composition one time through. Now, if you'll come join us in part 2, we'll get into the whole lower registry version of it, a little more hillbilly kind of country kind of sound. But we'll go through that in the part 2 video. Remember, as a premium member, you have access to the tablature and also the on-screen tab viewer for this. So if you're serious about learning how to play this and use it as something that you can practice with, come check us out. Otherwise, we'll see you in part 2.